Hello and welcome to the Newscast, your daily roundup of gaming news, and myself, Amata. Today is the 12th of June, and this time I bring you some news regarding Star Fox Wii U, Street Fighter V, and the Oculus Rift. So I will start off with Star Fox Wii U, as we have had some comments from the designer Shigeru Miyamoto, who has said that the Star Fox Wii U title is about a year from completion. Now, he did touch briefly on the game during an E3 presentation, which also touched on two of his other upcoming Wii U games, Project Guard and Project Giant Robot. However, regarding Star Fox Wii U, he said, quote, "We have gone into full development and it's progressing well. We're going to be showing it to everybody as soon as we feel it's totally ready, but we're planning on completing it within about a year from now. So I hope everyone will be looking forward to Star Fox on Wii U." Now, he actually made some interesting comments earlier in the week that a small team had unsuccessfully experimented with Star Fox on the Wii for about 6 years. And he said, quote, "So instead we moved experimentation to the Wii U using some of the same assets. It's been maybe 6 to 10 months that we've been experimenting with it. Now, according to the early previews, players will control the R-Wing with the gamepad's analog sticks while aiming and firing using the motion controls, and the ship can then morph into a land tank for ground-based combat. Now, according to the information teased, Miyamoto's team has also created a 2-player vehicle mode. Now, when one person uses the motion controls, they will pilot a helicopter-like craft, while the other will control a tiny robot, which can then be dropped from a tether to be rolled around a limited area in order to retrieve items or attack foes. So it's rather interesting that they abandoned it on the Wii, but I'm sure we'd all prefer the better graphics of the Wii U anyway. Now, as for Street Fighter, the series producer Yoshinori Ono has confirmed that Street Fighter V is in the early planning stages at Capcom. Now, he also addressed the new game on his Twitter account as he headed off rumours that were floating around that the game would be including a pay-for-win system. Now, according to an E3 report from Sports Nippon, which was then translated by Event Hubs, the system was being considered as basically a way to let new players stand a better chance against veterans, who would obviously completely crush them otherwise. And it said, quote, "The SFV news today about a pay-to-win model is not accurate and isn't something we're planning for. Sorry for the confusion. We're still in early planning stages and will share more at a later date." Now, the report did also state that Capcom would like to implement in-game spectating for high-profile matches for the next title. So that would be rather nice, and it did also add that Street Fighter V is apparently, of course, being planned for PS4 and Xbox One, but is obviously going to be a long time before this game actually comes out. So let's just be happy that the pay-to-win rumours are basically headed off at the pass, as I think that facepalms all around the world kind of synchronised and created a massive tidal wave of air, just, creating massive destruction in the form of a fail-based hurricane. But I don't think Capcom would ever be silly enough to put a pay-to-win advantage in a competitive title. It just would not go well, and I think even Capcom know that. So let's just wait and see, of course, what happens over the course of developments, but I highly doubt we'll be seeing it ever make an appearance in a Capcom title, let alone Street Fighter V. And finally, we are finishing up this news cache with some news regarding the Oculus Rift, which will apparently be cheaper thanks to the Facebook buyout. And Oculus CEO Brendan Reeb has said that the actual consumer version of the VR headset will cost less thanks to them being bought out by Facebook. Now, obviously, when they were independent, they were aiming for a bigger profit on the sale of each device. But, of course, now that they have Facebook's backing, they can afford to take a smaller cut in cash, and basically charge less for the device. And he said, quote, "I think the buyout is going to allow us to deliver consumer V1 at a lower cost because we're not trying to drive a high margin on this. Mark Zuckerberg especially wants to bring the cost down, him more than me. Mark is much more of a mindset of, let's get this to scale with the best quality product at the lowest cost possible." Now, Reeb has said that he expects the first customer version to sell somewhere north of 1 million units, and that they would be, quote, "disappointed if it didn't release by the end of next year." And he said, quote, "As that kind of comes together, we have the hardware in place for consumer V1, and there's a lot of content, and there's a platform and an ecosystem for people to be able to monetize, and that will all come together for a consumer V1. There's a lot of rich content being made, but we need a lot more of it." So there you have it, some rather pleasing news that we should be seeing the Oculus Rift before the end of next year. Of course, that's still quite a way away, but I don't think anyone expected it before next year, realistically. And also nice to know that it will actually be cheaper due to the Facebook buyout. That's obviously because they've got Facebook's funding behind them. If they were an independent company, then they would be basically taking a larger cut from each sale because, well, they're independent. They didn't have anyone to back them other than the Kickstarter people, obviously, at the start. So a little bit of an upside from what is still a fairly controversial move in the Facebook buyout. So there you have it, guys. That is me done for this news cache. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.